And welcome to TCM Howzat, your one-stop shop to discuss the week's cricketing news. Coming up this week, Josh Tongue, England, Ireland, and a very angry me following last night's Rovers T20. Joining me for this one are the usual suspects, journalist, commentator, and Durham media man, Rob Rush, and alongside him, journalist Harrison Burridge. Boys, thank you very much for joining us. Let's turn to the big story of the week, which is the Test summer has begun. And as we speak, England are in action against Ireland. Harrison, first Test of the summer. What have you made of it so far?
I've only caught some of the action after lunch today, but seems like it's been pretty easy going for England. You kind of expected it with the way England have been playing of late and the preparation Ireland have had a lack of experience in the Test arena. And I mean, Stuart Broad bowled really well yesterday from the highlights, and then today Ben Duckett and Ollie Pope really put their foot down and put Ireland to the hammer in many ways.
Ben Duckett in the runs, Ollie Pope as well. We'll get to them in just a second. But I think it's fair to say that England have been dominating Ireland so far. Rob, lots of questions have been raised over this test. I think it was Andrew Balbirnie before this test was played was talking about how it doesn't really mean anything, how it's a bit pointless, and there'll be less people watching, say, Ireland versus Scotland. In terms of significance for a test nation like Ireland, they seem to be struggling here. Are they going to learn anything from playing England?
Maybe they'll learn how big the gap is between the two countries, and that's not meant in a malicious way at all. Like, I tuned in yesterday, watched most of the day's play, and after the last meeting between the two sides back in 2019, there's a thing that goes around in the back of my mind. Oh, maybe they could repeat maybe not to that extent. I don't think we get bowled out for 85 again. You know, they lost Tim Murtagh, he took 5 for 13, but you'd expect maybe not expect. You were maybe hoping for something a little bit more competitive, but after winning the toss, Ben Stokes putting Ireland into bowl, there's a lot been made about how this is a second-ranked bowling attack, but it's still got Stuart Broad, Matthew Potts, Josh Tongue, who's gone reasonably well in Div 2, Jack Leach, who's taken very, 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 very lots of wickets. That doesn't make sense, but he's taken a lot of wickets, both at county and international level. And yeah, this Ireland side, what do they have? A 3-day warm-up game against Essex where half the team had to play for Essex to make up the numbers. Morgan has spoken about it in an interview with the Times that the pathway, I haven't read the article, but the Irish pathway now is a lot more different to his when he came through. And it doesn't serve any side any real benefit. What, apart from the England batting and bowling, you could say, what do you get? Well, you get to see what Josh Tongue is made of, and he was impressive to an extent, didn't come away with any wickets in the first innings. We'll see if he can change that with the second. But what did you see? You saw Stuart Broad ran through a below average batting lineup. He's run through world-class batting lineups. We knew that already. You got to see Matthew Potts a bit. Just carry on taking wickets like he has done for Durham so far. Jack Leach taking wickets. You just saw the golf in class, and I just don't know. Because Ireland's comments are kind of been proven right. It's kind of this is a bit of a pointless test for England. It's kind of, nothing to lose, nothing to gain, everything to lose. If the worst happened, if they lost this game, everyone would be going, well, this doesn't bode well for the Ashes in 2 weeks. So yeah, it's good. It's at Lords 4 days, for the individuals. Some of those Irish players can say they played a test match at Lords, etc., etc. But from the overall grand scheme of things, it's men against boys, and it's just not. From a neutral point of view, you just look at the scorecard at certain points during the day and you don't tune in because you just know it's dominance.
So, Harrison, how do you fix that then? Where can Ireland get to the level so that they can compete against England in Test cricket and not be so far behind? Because it just feels like a carbon copy of what we see 4 years ago. 4 years ago, every 4 years they'll play Ireland and they will end up, battering them. That's not going to do any benefit for them. How do you fix this? And it comes back to more minor nations playing in Test cricket. What do you think the solution is to get these sides up to scratch?
Well, they haven't been playing any first-class cricket back in their own country for a few years now. Matt Roller tweeted about it in an interview he did with Balbirnie himself before the Test match. He talked about how they need to relaunch the Interpro Championship next summer, which is kind of the base for any side if they want to compete in the Test arena. They need to have something in their own country where not only the players in the side, but the players out of the side can or compete for places in that healthy competition, of course, always brings positive results in the actual team itself. But that's always the first step. You always then do look at funding. The funding from the ICC is always talked about. The next funding model has kind of been released and kind of been scrutinised by many people, and is going to become into action soon. Ireland are getting a bit more than they have done in past years, but they're often spending a lot of that just on their white ball cricket and staying afloat above the red line. So they've got to try and find a way to use that money, I guess, more effectively, or finding better revenue streams, because we know the ICC probably won't provide more, but they're the kind of two ways any side are going to be able to compete in the test arena.
It's certainly looking like England are going to win this test then. So let's turn to England and the performances we've seen so far. Obviously, the big story is Worcestershire's Josh Tongue, just 19 years old, making his debut at Lords. We're starting to see this a lot from the England side, letting the youngsters in when they get a chance. Rob, what do you make of his debut? Should Chris Woakes have played over him, or do you think it's the right thing to do to give a youngster a chance?
I think, what were you going to learn from Chris Woakes playing this test? That he's got a brilliant batting and bowling average at Lords. Great, we knew this before the test. So I don't personally have a real issue. I think, it's good to... England need to be thinking to the future here, because, they had the West Indies tour. They kind of had a little bit where there was that decision to drop Anderson and Broad and not take them. But, as the saying goes, they're not getting any younger. We do have to look to the next crop. And, Josh Tongue maybe won't be part of that major crop. That's probably looking at Ollie Robinson, Matthew Potts, maybe Ollie Stone if he can get himself fit. It's probably not going to include Jofra Archer at this stage with his injuries. Tongue on debut, I mean, he's been impressive to points. He clocked over 90 mile an hour. I think Broad and Potts didn't get up to that level on day one, so it's good to see him breaking that. He bowled reasonably well. It wasn't too expensive, but wasn't overly threatening either, I didn't think. You could tell there was a drop-off between the two guys that had played international cricket and had taken plenty of wickets compared to a guy that has only just really come into the setup and is in Div 2. The Chris Woakes thing, as I said, you knew what you're going to get out of Chris Woakes. And I think with the concern over Jimmy and Robbo that, they still might not be fit. The signs are looking good. But you don't want to take that extra risk. I think it's the same with Woakes. You don't want to say if Stokes bowls himself just a few overs, but then he goes down injured. You're going to need Chris Woakes to step up into his role to be the all-rounder in the side. So I don't have any real issue with Woakes not playing. It looks like a very dominant performance. I think as we're recording this on Friday afternoon, kind of Pope's about to reach 150. Root's just getting himself going. And it's crucial for Root and Brook and Stokes to get that time in the middle. Haven't played. Brooks played the most out of them in the IPL. I don't think Root's played maybe 4 games, and Stokes hasn't really played a lot. He's focused on rehabbing his knee. So I think that's just the thing now. You just want to get those guys in the middle, get them time out in the middle, get them with some experience of English conditions again. Atherton said about he's worried because Brook maybe doesn't know his game inside out yet, and because Root and Stokes are a little bit older, they know their game, they can adapt quicker. So maybe you just want to get Brook into that rhythm, because that's what got him into the test side last summer in the first place, being in a rhythm. Very dominant performance. I think, if it was anything less than this, we would be worried. It's not exactly the best. We can talk about how it's a little bit of a mock test and like a mock preparation for the Ashes, etc., etc. But if we didn't come out, or if England didn't come out, and Ben Duckett doesn't hit a 180 and Pope doesn't make 140 odds, there would be more questions piping around the camp and around the media going, well, are this side really ready for Australia? And it will be a bigger test. Pat Cummins is not going to be bowling cross seamers at 64 mile an hour, is he? He's going to be bowling. If he wants to bring it on, then we'll see what happens. But Pat Cummins is going to be bowling 90 mile an hour in swingers, out swingers with the new cherry against Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett. It's standard procedure for England. You just need to go and win this game, and the most important thing is you get out of it without any injuries. Don't overbowl Stuart Broad, don't overbowl Potts, don't overbowl Tongue. Get the win, get out of here with some rest, and then you build for the first test at Edgbaston.
Get the win and get out a strong message to start the summer. Harrison, we've seen a lot about the batting woes of England's top order in the lead up to this test, in the lead up questions over Zach Crawley. He made 56 yesterday. Ben Duckett looked quite strong as well. Do you think that'll give them an element of confidence to take into the Ashes? I know we've discussed the opposition, but just having those runs on the board sets them up nicely for the first Ashes test?
Definitely, at the end of the day, runs are runs, regardless of the opponent. You can critique whoever they're facing and judge them on the importance of them that way. But for individual batters, they will reflect on this test, and if they got runs, they'll be happy going into that start of the Ashes and confident they can take on the formidable Australian attack we know are going to cause the top order a lot of problems throughout the months of June and July. So that's it, really. It's just they got runs under the belt, time in the middle. That's the main thing, just some match practice for them ahead of those 5 tests.
Definitely. And we are not long away from Ashes season now, and I'm very, very excited. We're going to move on to one thing that I'm not really excited about, and that was last night's Rose's result at Headingley and the Vitality Blast more generally, because the competition is in full swing and it's been quite good this year. First, let's address the elephant in the room and talk about Lancashire versus Yorkshire, because Yorkshire, I think it's fair to say, with a team on paper that was nowhere near as good as our team, absolutely trounced us last night, and it was tough to watch as a Lancashire fan. Harrison, did you watch the game? And if you did, what were your thoughts on Lancashire's performance, dare I ask, or on Yorkshire's performance? Because, mind you, before this game, they'd lost 3 in a row, I think it was. So it's a big win for them.
I guess I'll preface this by saying I didn't watch the game. I was out last night elsewhere, but just from looking at it and looking back at some highlights, Dav Milan again at the top of the order for Yorkshire. 2 games in a row now, he's got runs that have effectively carried them to victory. I know Lancashire did drop Milan at one point in his innings, which ultimately didn't help in their cause, but for Yorkshire now, that's 2 wins in a row for them now. And then Milan's just playing a crucial part at the top of the order for them. And just on a general point about Lancashire, I don't think they should be too worried. I think it's kind of just one of those games that could be just lit for them. They got that stack side. Butler is back. He didn't succeed last night, but the Roses clash, Yorkshire will always be up for that, and it just didn't happen for Lancashire last night.
Josh Butler, I think that might have been one of the most excruciating innings I've ever seen. But he likes to do it for Lancashire. He always likes to just come back to Lancashire and not really do much. However, he's got a long extended run of games, so I'm hoping he'll be able to bounce back by that. Rob, for you then, Lancashire, Yorkshire, I'm sure you have your opinions as Southerners and as neutrals. For you watching that game last night, on a broader point, packed out crowd at Headingley, it felt like watching it from home, it felt like a real atmosphere. How good is it to have these big crowds for Vitality Blast matches?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to criticise Sky Sports for not starting their YouTube live stream on time. It's a general bugbear I have. It's been well aware that they are cutting back on Vitality Blast games. Durham's game against Notts on Monday evening, there was no commentators up at Chester Street. The commentators were in Osterley, and it was just Dominic Cork up just doing the basic reporting for Sky. And I get that obviously they are really trying to make the 100 a success. But that's now up in the air with the main man in the ECB that was behind 100 is now left. But it's the little things, man. There were people there waiting in that lot. I get it's, as I say, it's a little thing, but it means a lot when the Blast has been around for so long, and this is, we're waiting 10, 15 minutes for the start of the game, and there's always talk about football. There's live streaming, and people go to pirate streams to watch. I've got no doubt about it. I looked at some of the comments in that live stream section yesterday. There were plenty of people that decided to sack off the Sky Sports live stream to go and find it on a separate pirate stream, and you're just shooting yourselves in the foot. If you're going to cut down the coverage enough, okay, that's your decision. We don't really have a impetus on that as fans, but you can at least do the basics right in making sure if you schedule a live stream to start at 7:00, and this is the thing, it wasn't one of those ones where they were showing live on Sky Sports Cricket and also streaming on YouTube at the same time. They were waiting for the game to start on the TV before streaming it on YouTube. So, yeah, that's just one of the issues that really got at me yesterday. I'm sorry for that mini rant. Overall, though,
you want a mini rant? Never.
The atmosphere, yeah, I mean, it's sort of as you expect, wasn't it? A Roses game, Lancashire, Yorkshire, no matter what's kind of gone on, and how some people claim the Blast is being watered down. Lancashire v Yorkshire is always going to get the people. It's always going to get, yourself who's a Lancashire fan. It's going to get Isaac, a good friend of ours who's a Yorkshire fan. It's always going to get you two riled up. It's always going to get everyone riled up on social media.
Let's talk about the Vitality Blast so far more generally. We've seen a lot of games now. I believe we're about 4 games in for each team. Harrison, who has impressed you? Who is going to be the standout this year? Who do you think at this point is going to make it to finals day?
Pick one from each group to make it nice and simple. I'll go North Group, Warwickshire. I mean, when you look to their team on paper, with the addition of Maxwell and they had Paul Sterling initially for the first few games before he's gone and joined them up for the test match with Ireland. They're just so strong throughout. They've got Mo and Ali joining them from tonight, I believe, after coming back from the IPL. So it's just, they've got such a strong team around on paper, and they're 4 from 4. And I mean, to be honest, I don't think they've really looked like losing at any point, and beat Lancashire themselves as well just the other day. And in terms of the South, I had to get a dig in there somewhere. And in terms of the South Group, it does pay me to say it, and I'm glad the individual's not here to gloat about it, but Somerset have been very strong so far. They did tear
I'm going to edit that out.
They did tear Hampshire apart on that in their first game, winning by 8 wickets, and then have chased down another couple of totals and then beat Kent by just 13 runs the other night. They are strong as well. Will Smee, Tom Banton at top of the order, and then the other Toms throughout the team, along with Lewis Gregory. It's just another very strong team with Matt Henry in that bowling attack as well.
Definitely. I was watching the Sky coverage last night, and at the end of the Roses match, they were talking a bit more about the North and the South Group. Now, in previous years, there's been criticism levelled at the North Group for not being as strong as the South Group. Now, arguably, I'd say, so far from what we've seen, Rob, the North Group is undoubtedly very, very strong this year in a way which I think the results in the South Group are not. Is that fair?
I'd say it's fair. I think probably the North Group has probably been top heavy, and obviously the teams at the top of the group have been very strong, and then the sides down the table have typically been very weak. Again, this is gonna like everyone knows that I work for Durham. Like I'm doing stuff for Durham.
Really?
But like,
I didn't know this.
Durham have been very poor in T20s for the last few years, and they've got off to a decent start this campaign. 2 out of 3. They're playing Lancashire this evening.
It'll be a close one, I think.
Well, it depends on back-to-back games. Speaking to some of the guys, they really hate back-to-back games. They're feeling it at the end of the second game. So,
just on that, I was going to say about scheduling of the Vitality Blast. It's coming thick and fast, really. It's a long competition. Do you think that this will hamper players? Lancashire obviously going straight from Headingley to Chesterley Street today. I
don't think you'll see someone like Luke. I mean, I know Luke Wood got tonked yesterday, but I don't think you'll see him play tonight. I think this is where they'll probably have named. I mean, you've probably named a separate squad for today, but there probably is a couple changes in that squad. I don't think the scheduling is a good thing. And you think about it, they're now going to start after next week. They're now going to start mixing county championship cricket back in with the Blast to what we had last year, where they would play Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off, and then your Friday, and then your weekend is 2 T20 games. And no, I don't think it's not great. I don't want to say what I want to say because I'll get in trouble. But we can go back to the whole cricketing schedule thing. It's just way too jam-packed, and this is where if you're an optimist, you look at the squad size and you go, well, this is a chance for some of those younger players to get that opportunity. But at the same time, if the clubs want to make it through to finals day and the quarterfinals and want to earn some money from the tournament, they've got to play their best players. So there's room to move on all sides, but ultimately it starts with the scheduling, and that has to I don't understand why we're playing on back-to-back nights. Yes, you only bowl 4 overs in a T20 if you bowl your full 4. So it's not as taxing as 20 overs in a 4-day game, but you can't discount that 4 overs. Someone like Ben Rain or Stephen Mullaney, they don't bowl the fastest, but they've played a lot of games this season, so it all has a cumulative effect, and everything does add up. So yeah, ultimately, I think the scheduling needs to be sorted out, but we could say that for any format and anywhere in cricket currently, so it's not just a Blast.
and scheduling is something that we keep coming back to week on week on week on week. So I'm sure we will get into that, maybe have a feature episode on the schedule and how do we sort it out later in the summer. Let's stick with the blast, Harrison. We talked a bit about who's impressed us. I want to talk about your beloved Hampshire, because they're sitting pretty down in 8th place, having lost 2 and won only 1. Are you worried about them so far?
The optimist in me says no, because we all start poor and we come back and then made final days 2 years in a row and won it last year from when it lost, losing like the first 4 games. But that Somerset defeat, I guess, was a bit of a very much a wake up call. The top order batting was just blown away in many ways, albeit from a very good opening spell from Overton and co for Somerset. The Surrey defeat the other night, I think it highlighted once again the reliance on James Vince for Hampshire in that batting lineup. 88 not out of 56 balls in a total of 156. Press struggled for a run the ball 33, and there was nothing else really apart from that. And that's the main real concern, because then the bowlers got a total to defend that really isn't competitive at the Ageas Bowl, and Will Jack kind of made a mockery of it and took Crane down towards the end to make it cruise control. But in terms of a general point, Essex tonight and then Sussex tomorrow is 2 games you kind of look at, you need to win if you want to be going to final stage. I think that'd be a really good marker for where the side is at and how they're going to fare this year.
Definitely, and I hope if they turn it around, I'll be quite annoyed.
I mean,
I think they will.
The bowling's not been great, as Harrison said. Also dealing with injuries. Brad Wheel is looking like he's missing the entire tournament, and Benny Howell has suffered a little bit of a calf tear, so he's currently rehabbing.
He's out of the whole tournament, I think. Enough.
Oh, brilliant! So that makes it even better. But yeah, overall, not the best start. As you mentioned there, you can't. We have been a bit of a James Vince and Insular County for a little bit. County Championship, we've kind of improved on that in recent years, but it's not feasible to keep asking James Vince to score half your runs in an innings, and it's where Ben McDermott has to step up as an overseas. It's where Tom Prest, he's still young, but he has been in around the first team for 2 to 3 years now. We're trying to put Toby Albert in the middle order, try and get him some experience there. He's definitely got the potential and he's got the ability. Joe Weatherly has to step up, as another one of the more experienced players. He has to step up and start contributing some more runs. I'm worried. I don't think if we don't win, as I said, we need to win the next 2. Yeah. I think if we don't win either of the next 2, I think we can pretty much kiss goodbye to getting through the group stage, which would be a huge disappointment. But ultimately, you don't perform, you don't get the results you deserve.
It's a long tournament though, and there's plenty more games to come, and of course we'll keep you up to date on that. Let's just think about the tables before we move on. Birmingham obviously topping the North group, whereas down at the bottom of that, Leicestershire 1-0. So maybe some concern for them given their rebuilding program. Durham also in 4th there. I don't think I could predict the top 4 in the North group, which is quite interesting, I'd say. And then as for the South, Somerset sitting pretty at the top. I'm sure a certain Duffel is very happy.
I'm just very happy to see Tom Banton back scoring runs again. I love Tom Banton. He's one of those players that is just, when he's in full flow, he's amazing to watch. He's kind of a little similar to Matthew Parkinson. He had a taste of international cricket, but has really fallen by the wayside in recent years. It's well documented that Banton struggled with his mental health with the whole bubble situation. He's pulled out of deals. He's not been in the right place at the right time in certain situations to play for England. But yeah, it's just good to see him back at the top of the order, hitting runs like we all know he can. And as I say, when he's in full flow, his shot selection and his range of shots is amazing. So hopefully, as a Tom Banton fan, he can keep that up. As a Somerset fan, Alex is obviously happy, but as a Hampshire fan, I want to see him just when he plays us, just tone it down a bit.
Great stuff, and Tom Banton is a fantastic player. I think we're all agreed by that, and it's nice to see him doing well. Down at the bottom of that table, as we mentioned, Hampshire and also Middlesex, who have not won one yet, but there's plenty of time. It could all change. Let's move on though to something the 100 has done quite well, which is grow women's cricket, because last week I was fortunate enough to go to the Empower Play doubleheader at Old Trafford and watch the Thunder versus the Blaze and Lancashire versus Leicestershire. And I had a great time. Here's a little video that shows you what it was like.
Hi guys, only me. Come with me to Lancashire's doubleheader for the Empower Day. This is me in York in the morning, had a coffee, dropped off by Smed at the station, and then we were on the train. This is me at the tram stop going through the centre of Manchester, and then we bumped into Ben, who was my company for the day in hospitality. We were treated, I tell you. This is a view of the ground, another view, and it was Lancashire versus Leicestershire first, and Lancashire absolutely battered them. Here's Luke Wells bowling. They won by in 11 overs, did Lancashire. Anyway, we took a walk around the ground. It was quite busy for a Thursday afternoon, can't lie. Yeah, this was the chase. Stephen Croft hit some outrageous sixes. Then it was time for a panel about Empower Play. Lancashire are really pushing women's cricket as they should, and it was insightful. It had Lancashire's CEO on. This is back in the Emirates Lounge after that, and this is the tremendous scrum that I had. It was beautiful. After that, it was time for the Blaze versus the Thunder. It was a more competitive game than the first one we saw, but the Thunder ultimately lost. Tammy Beaumont was unreal. Anyway, we were sat with friends, and here's Ben. And this was me on the way out of Old Trafford. A very, very happy man I was after a fantastic day of cricket.
And it was interesting because we sort of went to a panel and we sat and we watched people talk about women's cricket for an hour. And it was very insightful hearing businesswomen and players alike talking about the future of the women's game and the commercialisation of the women's game. Harrison, I want to come to you first on this. In terms of the commercialisation of the women's game, one thing that was said is there just needs to be a lot more investment and a more united approach. Would you say that is definitely the way forward?
Definitely. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the actual professionalisation of the game this year and how there's now, I think it's 101 professionally contracted players in England, which is just fantastic around all the counties, the regional setups and then England itself. But then you do look at the wider picture, you look under that, the players that aren't contracted, then the players that are just in the county setups below the regional setups, and you wonder what is happening to them, and you do wonder where the money's coming from, the women's game. I think someone I saw the other day was on another pod, I think the Storylines podcast, about an interview with Thea Brooks or something, someone who got let go from Birmingham Phoenix because she didn't get a contract, and the difficulties she's had since that, and the lack of support from the ECB and PCA in that sense. And they got to try and find a way, kind of, it's even just links back into how they schedule the games and what times they play and what days they play. And there's got to be a united front to make it an advertisable product, one that everyone wants to watch and enjoy and invest their own time and money into. And then you're generally going to generate those revenue streams and the money will trickle down throughout the whole game.
Phoebe Graham was talking about that on the panel. She was saying that they need to build together. At the moment, if she said it felt very top down, as in we've seen a lot of the marketing about the Ashes as the women's Ashes and the men's Ashes together. But where's the marketing about the Charlotte Edwards Cup alongside the Blast? It's nowhere near. Rob, do you think we need to see more of that marketing at the women's domestic game?
Oh, 100%. And it's a very good point that she raised there, that, you know, there's no reason why it can't be. And I've said it, I think, maybe the last pod that we did, that this is kind of the bar now. This is the bar. This is the standard that it has to be. I might have said it on I might have said it on uni radio, but like, nevertheless, the point remains the same. Like, this has to be the bar. This is the standard now. And I think that's the most logical next step forward, and one that needs to be, you know, it's obviously a bit too late now with both tournaments kind of underway and in full swing, but, you know, going forward next year, it needs to be put forward. I guess it's just it's difficult, as we kind of alluded to earlier, with Sky cutting back on the Blast coverage. Have Sky picked up any Charlotte Edwards Cup games?
No, they haven't. And I think
so that's one of the main issues. And, you know, you can even talk about Sky as an issue there. You know, not everyone has, with the rise in prices that Sky are going to be charging for like packages, less and less people are going to be, you know, having Sky, you know, from stuff up at stuff up that we've talked about in the press box is that some women's games don't even have commentators, they don't have music, they don't have scorecards. Like, you know, it's all like, it's very good that we're now talking about these bigger steps to move the women's game forward, but ultimately, we need the pure basics at every level sorted before we can move forward.
So this was a very interesting point that you make there, and something that we talked a lot about with speaking to people at Empower Day, is that it's basic things, just kits for women on a domestic level, kit bags, things that are so simple, right?
Things you shouldn't have to really think about.
Yeah, you just assume, right, that women's cricket would have access to the same, facilities and the same equipment as the men, but they don't. And, this is something they were talking about. Just a stat for you that I learned that was very interesting on this discrepancy in domestic cricket, which I think, quite frankly, ECB is a disgrace. Invested in the men's game, in terms of domestic pathways, I believe it is about £75,000 or £80,000 a year, maybe even more. The women's get £14,000 across all of grassroots cricket in England. And that is something which is, quite frankly, for a governing board which is trying to push women's cricket, an absolute disgrace. That makes me really angry. I don't know if you can tell, Harrison. Do you think the ECB need to be doing more to promote grassroots domestic women's cricket?
Absolutely. I think it's one you need to try and promote to the wider audience, as I alluded to earlier. It's not necessarily the part of the game a lot of people are attracted to just from the actual value of it, because the old attitude some people hold towards that front, but it's very much an exciting aspect of the game, and one that is growing and becoming better and better by the day and the game at this moment in time. And if the ECB aren't acting and treating it as seriously as they should, then it's never going to become what it could possibly become, and kind of emulate what it has become over in Australia, with not even there, just the Women's Big Bash they go over there, but the system underneath it is getting better and better, and more funding is going into that for the next summer with better contracts and stuff. It's just little things like that. Just like going back to Rob's point, mentioned about getting the basics wrong on games. I think it was Kirsty Gordon that put out a tweet after the Blaze played, I believe it would have been Central Sparks at Leicestershire as part of a double header, and they put their game finished a couple of hours before the men's games. It kind of made double header pointless. Fans didn't want to stick around, and they just had, as Rob mentioned it, there was no music played at all throughout their game. It's just making it almost like a club game when it deserves to be treated a lot better, as it is a lot better than just a simple club game.
It also goes to like the streaming as well. Kind of, if Sky aren't going to be there, if county championship games, unless you're in London, side dig there, they don't get put on Sky. But clubs have got their YouTube feeds, and you can access on MV Play. You can always offer the men's games and even seconds games. There really shouldn't be this big of a discrepancy. Like if you're a diehard cricket fan and you want to know how your favourite player who's in the seconds is going on return from injury, you can find it pretty easily if you log into, Play Cricket or whatever it is to access, and you can see the scorecards and whatnot. It's that sort of thing that we need to be keeping on going. And as I alluded to earlier, and Harrison brought back up there, I was at Lancashire last Saturday for the double header. And you could probably the time between the games probably was on a little bit on the long side, because there was just kind of that period after the women's game finished, which wasn't overly competitive. Thunder ran away with it from the start, but there's that hour and 20-minute wait between the women's game finishing and the men's game starting. It's I guess this falls into a general cricket point in sort of, all right, let's try and help ourselves here. Definitely. Same like rain delays, and the thing that gets me is why do we have to wait half an hour from the start of the game when a toss is done to when play starts? It could be 15 minutes. If you have your team ready to go at the toss, everyone's there in whites.
5 minutes. You can do it.
Everyone there in whites. Bang. Right, toss is done. What are you doing? We're batting. Right, national anthems. Right, let's get on and play. That way you can fit in an extra 25, 30 minutes. And then that bleeds into your over rates. And maybe you don't have the issues of over rates. Because yesterday in the first day, it was we lost probably 5-6 overs to poor over rates from England during their bowling. Like, this is the sort of things like that we can talk about how the positives of our game and how great it is, and like, you know, the camaraderie aspect and everything like that. But there is still such a long way to go in terms of, you know, like I said, we can talk about the advanced stuff and trying to, you know, make everything as big and like plush as it can be, until we get the damn basics right and really stamp out the areas at the basic levels. It's always going to be a fight, and you know, it's just not on.
No, it is not, and it's time to stand up against it, and that's what we're going to try and do. Just the final thing on this, I think Rob touched on an interesting point there about the gap between games. In terms of a scheduling thing, at that Empower play header, obviously we had a panel to go to, but we were all right. But I was thinking a lot maybe for the casual fan who's there watching Lancashire-Leicestershire, which was a dismal game because we absolutely trounced them and got 19-11 overs. So the gap between games was about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Now, even as a casual fan in the stands, if you what do you do in those 2 hours if there's not much entertainment on, if there's nothing to do?
Not everyone has got 2 hours to sit around and waste.
Definitely.
You know, like I won't get too political, but everyone knows the state that the UK is in at the minute with like everything that's going on. No one has enough time on their hands to sit around for 2 hours waiting for the second game of cricket to start.
I think maybe something that needs to be looked at is why do we have to have these set start times, right? Especially when it's a double header. Why can't we have it
needs to be flexible?
As soon as that game finishes, get the next one on, right?
Well, I mean, not as soon as, because you still need probably still need. But I get the overall point.
Let's get the changeover. Let's get the changeover time less. Harrison, do you think me and Rob are onto something, or is this never going to happen?
You definitely are. It's something, I know, going back to the point we've talking about, but it's something the 100 does really well, the time between the two games. I know they have the entertainment from a single sign to complement the gap between the two games, but it really is often just an hour. If that first women's game goes the full length, you tend to only get an hour before the men's game, or vice versa. If they have the men's game first and the women's game second, it's just that one thing they've done well. And yeah, some of the lengths gaps of time you've seen so far in these recent double headers, like, yes, well done for doing double headers. That's a good first step, but let's execute them in a proper way here, and in a way that's going to not only grow the game, but incentivize fans to turn up and watch both games, and not just think, oh, there's like 2 hours between this after the women's game to the men's. I'm only going to rock up for the men's. Try and make it as it's two games. There's going to be an hour at most between the two, nothing more. You get 2 games of cricket for the price of one, kind of thing.
Definitely, but I think Lancashire are doing a great job, I will just say it, pioneering these women's cricket, and I think it's great to see, and I'd love to see other counties follow suit. Let's turn to the final part of the programme, and it is time for Ask TCM. Yes, it's the part of the show where we read out your questions. However, mobile Twitter has decided to stop working for me, so I'm going to read them from my computer, and we've only got one question today, which is nice and easy and quick, and it comes from M Cricket, who says, as of standings currently, who are your favourites to be at finals day? Let's go to Rob Rush first. Rob.
So what? We're picking 2 from each group here to get
2 from each group to progress to finals day.
From the South group, I will go Somerset as 1. I think they've got really good chance to keep up their good early momentum from the start. So I'll go Somerset. And as much as I'm saying this with gritted teeth, sorry. Their squad is just too good. You know, you're going to have Sam Curran around for the whole tournament, Will Jacks, like Jason Roy when he's fit. Like, their squad is really good. From the North group, you can't really look past Birmingham. Birmingham, I think, are going to carry it through to that stage. And then it actually, the last team for the North group is very hard, because as we alluded to earlier in the show, kind of Notts have got a really strong squad. They should be up in contention. Lancashire, on paper, probably have the strongest squads in that North group, so they should be there. Durham are showing a bit of resurgence, so whether they can keep it up remains to be seen. And, you know, Derbyshire, Wayne Madson's going really well. Maybe he can propel them to some more wins to put them in the conversation. So really, you've got 5 teams there campaigning for really 2 spots. But if you're going to push me, I will go Notts, I think, because they're the most well-rounded side. I think their top order is really good, regardless of their characters. Their bowling attack, one thing I don't understand how Stephen Mullany is able to take the pace off the ball, but not get tonked around everywhere. It seems to be a very good skill of his. And they've got that experience in that group. Some of the players have won 100. They've been around T20 cricket for a while. So, yeah, I think Notts will just about edge it. But as I said, generally, you've got 5 teams there competing for 2 spots. So 3 teams are going to be disappointed.
Thank you for that amazing maths. Harrison, who are you going to choose and why?
Well, thanks to Rob first for picking Nottinghamshire for that second North Group once we don't have the exact same 4 teams. So South Group,
not even scripted either. Not even scripted.
So we go Somerset and Surrey.
Are you sure you didn't get together and arrange it?
Well, you are like 10 minutes late to the recording, so
who knows what happens?
Fortunately, that also wasn't recorded, so you will have no proof of it whatsoever.
Exactly. Anyway, Harrison?
Yep, so Somerset and Surrey for the South Group. I think Rob put it well. Somerset are on a bit of a train at the moment with their results, and Surrey have that star power throughout. And you think if they don't get to finals day, something bonkers is going to have to happen, and you can't see it happening with it being an Ashes someone. They won't lose a lot of their white ball stars so early as compared to last year. North Group, Birmingham as well to go through. Probably I'd expect them to top the group, to be honest. As I alluded to earlier, just so strong throughout all areas. And then this is where Rob put it well as well. That second spot is so tightly contested. It could be anyone. Worcestershire currently have it at the moment, but they've beaten 3 sides that are in the current bottom 4 of the group. So you'd think, unless they continue that against a stronger side, they won't be there. So, to the delight of someone on this call...
Oh, hello.
Think about what you're going to say, Harrison. Change your mind.
I'm going to go Lancashire for the same reason I went Surrey. It's just too much star power for them not to get to finals day and perform when it really matters. I expect we'll probably get top 4, but they won't get to finals day to keep Rob happy.
Right.
Finals day work would be nice, but
I'm not really sure.
I think just Durham being competitive in T20 is enough.
I'm going to give my picks, and I'm going to go Somerset, obviously. I'm going to throw a curveball and say Surrey won't make it because I just think that they always lose in knockout games. And I'm going to say...
Do you think it'll be the same result that we got last year in the quarterfinals where Yorkshire knock them out again?
Yeah, something like that, probably. I think that maybe just might be because I'm salty about last night and I just now think anything. Anyway, I'm going to go for Essex as my other choice in that group. I think they're quite strong, and I think they can build. I think they can build momentum in the South Group, so that'll be very interesting to see. And as for the North Group, I can't speak. I've lost it. I'm going to go for Birmingham, obviously. And then, of course, my beloved Lancashire. I can't not put them in. Also, though, I do think on Worcestershire, they're going to be quite close because they've got on a run and momentum's a big thing in this tournament. Anyway, let's just...
Especially when games, as we said, especially when games are coming thick and fast, players have spoken about it, 1 win can lead to 2, and if you can win those close games, it gives you more confidence, etc., etc. So we'll have to wait and see. I think the thing will be is when they start bringing back in division county championship games. And when you're going from county championship to T20, that will be, I think, the test of the better teams in the tournament.
Just watch us all be completely wrong. That would be good. Anyway,
come back to this on finals day when Worcestershire have not even made the finals and Hampshire somehow won again.
Oh no! Anyway, the games are coming thick and fast now in cricket season. The Ashes almost 2 weeks away. We're almost there, and we will be keeping you up to date across all the cricketing news here on the channel. If you enjoyed today, please leave us a like and a subscribe. My thanks once again to Rob and Harrison for joining us. It's becoming quite the weekly event, this. But for now, we will see you in the next one. Thanks for joining us.